I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
L'amour.
How are you?
Tired.
Okay.
How are you?
Okay. I didn't get good sleep. Something woke me up at 3 o'clock. And then I stayed up until like 4. And then woke back up again at like 7.
Oh.
And then had an incident with DoorDash.
An incident.
Very frustrated this morning. I ordered breakfast for us on DoorDash to pick up from a restaurant I had not heard of near our house in Manhattan Beach. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh, this is going to be cute. It's because the name of the restaurant is Burrito Affirmations. So I thought, oh, it's probably some trendy bullshit thing in Manhattan Beach that will appeal to white folks who want Mexican food. But I wanted to try it. And
let's be clear that you wanted to try it.
I wanted to try it, yes. You had no idea where I was ordering from. So I order from there, and we go to pick it up, and I'm having a very difficult time finding it. I have the address, I know where this location is, but the only thing there is this like Mexican restaurant we've eaten from before, which is fine. Mm-hmm. It's fine.
Yeah. But
the prices are like less than half of what they were on DoorDash. So I'm like, well, this can't be right, because these burritos were like $16 each. So we drive around looking for the place. I try to call the number on DoorDash and it's out of service. So I finally walk into this other Mexican restaurant and say, hey, are you this place? And the guy's like, yeah, what's your name? So I was very upset because I feel like I had been catfished.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because the DoorDash profile for this other restaurant, this fake restaurant, was much nicer. The food looked much nicer.
And it was much more expensive.
And was more than double what the prices of this place we've eaten at a number of times before are. The prices are much lower. But I get the food because we need to eat. And then I get on chat with like a DoorDash rep. And I was on there for like an hour.
Yeah, very distracted.
Yeah, transferred to like 3 different people before I finally just disconnected, saying I was very unhappy because I feel like I was deceived. And DoorDash's response is like, well, we have no control over how these restaurants, like what information they put in their profile. Mm-hmm. To which my response was like, how do you not verify your like partners? Like,
well, right, but that's like getting on Grindr's ass for saying I showed up at somebody's house and he didn't look like his pictures.
No, I don't think that's the same, because that would be like how Amazon sells products from vendors that aren't them. And then it's like you order a DVD of Heartbreakers, mm-hmm. and then it shows up and it's a bootleg copy of a movie called Cockbreakers. It's just like, that's how I felt.
Sure.
Like, just totally duped. So the resolve was they didn't tell me this, the agent disconnected from my chat. Like, ended it. Uh-huh. Didn't finish. And then I get an email saying I received a $15 credit. But anyway, that's my rant about DoorDash.
Such tenacity about...
I don't know. I mean, I do complain, but...
This is how I have to motivate you on some things, is I have to give you the impression that you were ripped off.
Yeah.
And then it's full steam ahead.
This is unacceptable. But I didn't go full Karen on it. I feel like it was very reasonable.
No, of course it was.
That I purchased food from an imaginary restaurant.
I just think it's kind of creepy because the only way you would know is if you're in a situation where you go pick up the food yourself.
Yes, that's the point. It's deceptive because had we done delivery, we wouldn't have been the wiser. Or I wouldn't have been.
Yeah, because they could be delivering DiGiorno's. And I wouldn't know.
Right, but because I chose to pick it up, and I realized, like, wait. This is not the restaurant. Anyway, enough about that. So we are caught up on Drag Race Holland. We watched episodes 5, 6, 7. The judging has been interesting because episode 2, someone went home who I didn't think deserved to go home.
Which was who?
The darker skinned man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that he's
dressed
black.
up as the gremlin.
Yes. And then...
what was his... Masisi?
Yeah, Masisi.
Love Masisi. Yeah. It was weird. They shackled him to a narrative of...
he doesn't believe in himself.
He doesn't believe in himself. And it's like, this grown-ass man, just let him perform.
But, yeah, so episode 5, there's the challenge where a family member comes, or a loved one, friend, and they have to do, put them in drag and do a family resemblance. and the Countess ends up going home, which was fine with me.
Yeah.
She didn't have much personality, so...
Well, her personality is built on the self-defense mechanism of being a mean girl. So beautiful gowns.
Beautiful gowns, but she could go.
Yeah.
Episode 6 was an acting challenge, and Tabitha, who is my favorite, not to win. I didn't think Tabitha would win, but I thought Tabitha would be the person I'd want to hang out with.
Sure.
And she had a lot of personality. Her drag was raggedy.
Yeah.
And she's the one who looks like Tony Savalas.
Telly,
who doesn't want to cinch or
no,
pad.
We won't be doing that today.
Yeah,
no,
we won't
sir.
be doing that.
Which
So,
you can't ask her to because Fred doesn't cinch. The
and then
host.
Fred is like, yes, don't cinch. Like, both of y'all need to cinch and pad. But yeah, Tabitha's drag was a little raggedy, but I thought she had the most personality and seemed the most fun. She also was the oldest one. So I think that's also probably why I really liked her. But she went home episode 6. And episode 7, well, something kind of big happened episode 6. Vanessa Van Cartier confronts Vivaldi because Vivaldi makes a comment about, we find out Vanessa's the trans woman, and she started her transition later in life, so her male pattern baldness had already started before her hormone replacement therapy. So her hairline's fucked up, and she's very self-conscious about it. And during the challenge, her turban fell off, and Vivaldi made a what I thought was a very like loose comment, like not targeted at her, but just like, oh, that sucks what happened with your turban. And Vanessa took it as like, you're mocking my hairline. Yes. So they had a huge confrontation.
But they had already had a little tension over stuff that's I feel like people were being sensitive.
I feel like they were blowing it out of proportion.
On both ends, I think. Just like...
But it resulted in Vanessa telling the group and I guess production, because she's on camera, that Vivaldi has a cell phone. And they're not supposed to have cell phones. It gives them an unfair advantage because they can look up shit for challenges. So for episode 6, during the judging, Fred asks everyone, like, what do you think we should do with Vivaldi because she broke the rules? And they all say this bitch should go home. But then she doesn't.
And Fred's like, nah.
Fred's like, no, I'm just going to make her lip sync against Tabitha, and then Tabitha loses. So Vivaldi gets to stay. I thought she should have gone home.
I think it was a matter of, it was top 5 and they kind of would have screwed themselves over at this point, maybe.
You know, it is very produced, so I'm sure they had in mind, like, who would be top, so they didn't want, and I'm sure Vivaldi was part of that group. But that logic doesn't really apply now because episode 7, another acting challenge, Keita Minaj gets sent home.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at that.
And I was 100% sure she would be top 2.
But it really does come down to they're asked to lip sync, however they ended up.
But that's not really fair because when Old Girl went home episode 3, they say like, I'm basing this on the full.
Yeah, they do flip flop.
They flip flop. So I just thought like, wow, Keita Minaj had won 3 challenges. It's
just kind of like how they allowed Countess to stay after that terrible lip sync.
Right.
To En Vogue.
Right.
Where Fred makes a statement like, look, that lip sync was bad, but this is your first time here.
Yeah, I still really like Drag Race Holland and I like Fred, but I was shocked that Keita Minaj went home.
Yeah, but you know, at the same time, it makes it a little less predictable than
it does. But now I think for sure, My Little Pony is going to win.
Probably.
Which I'm fine with. I thought he would be top 2, so that makes sense. Okay, well, moving on. It's been a very busy week. But I feel like we haven't done a lot of things for fun, so neither of us have watched any movies outside of the ones we reviewed.
Well, I've been watching 3 to 4 to 5 movies a day for Toronto Film Festival since...
And you're done with Toronto?
Yes, as of yesterday.
So you're going to provide us with your top 5 selections from TIFF?
Yeah, my 5 highlights.
Okay, go for it.
I guess I didn't even really put them in order, but closing the film festival was Zhang Yimou's 1 Second, which notably was in the competition at the 2019 Berlin Film Festival and was yanked out of the lineup 4 days before its premiere I think there was talk about post-production issues, but everybody chalked it up to like China's censorship issues. Since then, it finally has been released in China, but now it's at last getting an international premiere. And it really is kind of a love letter to cinema, set in the mid-1970s, about a father desperate to basically look at this newsreel of a daughter he's been separated from because he was in a labor camp, blah, blah, blah. I was at that film festival in Berlin and kind of shocked that happened. And so I'm glad that we finally are catching up with it. He's actually directed 3 films since this. Anyway, officially that closed the Toronto Film Festival. Then there's Terence Davies, Benediction. I don't think you've ever seen a Terence Davies film, queer British filmmaker, but definitely a body of work worth catching up on for you. I think my favorite...
You're speaking to me.
Yes, you, in front of me.
I think you meant the audience. No, I'm just kidding.
My favorite is his Emily Dickinson biopic with Cynthia Nixon, A Quiet Passion from 2016, which I know I've talked to you about before and we own, and I think that's a fantastic film. But he's recuperated another poet here, Siegfried Sassoon, a British poet from right after World War One, and kind of dealing with his love and work at the time. I thought was a very, especially for Terence Davies, kind of a cohesive biopic, well performed. Excellent little film.
Okay.
And then, of course, you did see The Good House with Sigourney Weaver.
Segovia Weaver.
Which we had a couple people over to watch. I made lots and lots of food and cake, and then all by myself, I rewatched it again the next day.
It was a time to celebrate, clearly.
Well, because, so back when The Good House was announced, I swore, I guess I haven't gone back to look, that this was involved with Universal, but, maybe a lot of things have changed in the world we live in, so now it doesn't have distribution.
The Good House?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
So I don't know if that... like Universal gave back the rights to Amblin. I don't know, but I as of this recording, it's still in need of that. But I'm hoping somebody buys it and snaps it up and puts it out there and does a nice little awards campaign for her.
I'm sure it will get distribution.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. I just don't want them to fuck it up. Much like what we forgot to mention in our review, the entire reason I started going to Toronto was back in 2007 because her film The Girl in the Park was premiering there, starring her and Kate Bosworth, which the Weinsteins bought the rights to, and then they released it in the UK only and DVD only in the US. They fucked that movie over, as they were apt to do with many films. Anyhow. Dash Cam, which you also saw.
An excellent movie.
Yeah, directed by Rob Savage, kind of a live footage pandemic film that has a lot of WTF moments and a lead character that's atrociously captivating person, played by Annie Hardy, which I hope that she does other things. And then Earwig, which I read the book it's based on first, a novella by Brian Catling. Lucille, I always say her last name wrong, Hadjalilovic, whose previous 2 films I really loved, Innocence and Evolution, again is giving us a film about a child being used for ambiguous, nefarious reasons. A child whose teeth have all been removed, and she has to have ice teeth put in her sockets in order to eat.
So they melt.
Yes. And I believe it's collected from her saliva, and they freeze them, and there's a man known as her... not her master, but that's hired to watch over her, and has to help her with her teeth. It's very bizarre. I feel like her film is even more ambiguous than the book. Also starring Romola Garai, but also fascinating. Like, you're just fascinated by it. A weird cat that's kind of like a devil's familiar shows up.
Wait, so her teeth, because they can't just put like what year is it supposed to be?
Mid-century, like right after World War II, the 50s.
So they can't put like porcelain teeth in her mouth or wooden teeth.
Eventually, because as she's growing, this man, kind of like how your braces have to be adjusted, a man has to come in and kind of tinker with the machinery of this thing as her mouth grows. But eventually, the ice is replaced by glass.
Oh God. Okay.
But again, for reasons we're never. I don't want to say it's brilliant. It's just kind of like, I don't know what you could do to possibly explain what she's being used for, but the fact that it is unanswered is kind of like, oh.
Okay.
So Earwig. And that played in the platform section. Of course, anytime TIFF's little competition section called Platform, named after the Jajanka 2000 film of the same name, they don't seem to award anything kind of bizarre or experimental, the little juries they have for those. So it's not surprising to me that went home empty-handed. But because of Toronto and going on that all day, there's a ton of releases this week we never even got to. Like The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which I have seen before, and Jessica Chastain is quite good in it. But it would have been nice to have time to review that. I think we're still planning on watching Little Girl, the documentary about the trans child.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Jamie. We didn't get to.
Is that musical?
Yeah.
Oh. With the guy who's like 28 playing a 16-year-old?
No, that's Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh.
We're seeing that Monday.
Oh.
Tomorrow. We're seeing that tomorrow.
Oh, something's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, Dear Evan Hansen.
No. I need to check my calendar. Anyway. Are those all the Toronto films you wanted to mention?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I watched a lot more, but those are my highlights. There were a lot of things I didn't love, but by the way, the awards came out. Dashcam won, I think, second runner-up for the Midnight Madness.
Who won first?
Titane, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which you have to see.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes.
What was it about?
We've talked about this.
Well, can you, in one sentence, describe what it's about?
You can go back and look at how I've sold it to you before in the Cannes footage.
But what about people who haven't heard what it's about?
I said it's like that David Cronenbergian body horror film.
Okay, I mean, what is it about?
Moving on. The second place of the Midnight Madness was that Irish horror film, You Are Not My Mother, which I can't believe that got voted more for than Dashcam, but anyhow.
Okay. Projects of interest?
Belgian filmmaker Dominique de Roder, who's been around for 30-odd years, has a new project called The Chapel that he's working on. I think it's about dueling pianists. But I remember de Roder, back his 1987 movie Crazy Love, that's when Sean Penn and Madonna were out basically championing this Belgian filmmaker with this movie. Which Crazy Love is really worth a watch. He's since done other things like Everybody's Famous. But for some reason, I always think about Madonna out there chanting about this Belgian filmmaker.
Okay.
And then, of course, we haven't really talked about it, but I made you aware of it. They're ramping up a remake of The Bodyguard.
Okay.
With Matthew Lopez writing, who's like a Tony Award-nominated writer.
I don't know anything about it.
I don't know. Everybody's speculating who... I assume that you had thoughts on The Bodyguard since you're a big fan of the film.
I don't think it's a good movie, but I like Whitney Houston, so it was fun to watch. I don't know that... Like a remake like a movie or a miniseries?
It's my understanding it's a film.
Oh. I mean, it could be fun. It would, if it's going to be... It all depends on who it is and the angle they want to take, and because the magic of The Bodyguard was you had like two A-list people in it, right? Mm-hmm. Like Whitney Houston's kind of playing a version of how the public sees her, right, as this mega pop star, and then you have Kevin Costner, who was an A-list actor.
Mm-hmm. Well, that script is from the 70s because it was a Diana Ross vehicle with, I feel like I read that Steve McQueen, and then I think she was really dating Ryan O'Neal. Both were like those were projects that should have come together then.
So, I mean, if it's going to be like fucking Camilla Cabello or whatever, and like some kid from some, I don't know, some show off of Showtime or so, I mean, I don't know, then I probably wouldn't be that interested. Because the actual...
What about Beyonce?
Beyonce wouldn't do it.
Well, there was, at one point she was going to do A Star is Born.
Yeah, but that I think has a different cachet than The Bodyguard.
She did a movie called Obsessed. I think that...
Yeah, but at this point, I don't see Beyonce doing... But, I mean, if she did, yes, that would be something that I would want to see, but I don't...
I think if you got a really good director and a very notable co-star, I could see her doing it.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is they would have to be compelling stars. But just to have, like, some C-level young actors...
Well, I think everybody's talking about, like, Cardi B or Lizzo.
So then the angle to me would have to be a very different. It would have to be maybe slightly more comedic. Or, well, it's not... I mean, there's no comedy in The Bodyguard. But maybe something a little more edgy than what The Bodyguard was.
Yeah. Because
also, the affair that she's having with Kevin Costner also added to some of the provocativeness of the story, right? Like this interracial, and then this woman who's not married having, you know, because she's about to have sex with the other bodyguard, and so I think in 2021, 2022, that just isn't that interesting.
Well, yeah, because even the '90s film seems very tame. Even how they deal with Costner and Whitney Houston's romance seems very almost an afterthought.
But I think enough that for that period, it still was kind of like, oh. And I think the thriller aspect of The Bodyguard worked well.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of tension the last hour of the film.
Rachel tension.
Isn't
her name Rachel in that?
Yeah, Rachel. And then, I forgot her last name now. Rachel, whatever. And then Rachel Tension is obviously RuPaul and Tu Wong Fu.
Yes.
But yeah, I think if it were someone like Cardi B or Lizzo, it would probably have to really lean into like the thriller component and maybe add like some comedy to it.
I think Cardi B would be a bit... I think Lizzo could be interesting. I think Cardi B might be distracting.
Also, the life that we, you know, for people who watched The Bodyguard when it came out, we all were sort of, you know, we were all like, I was younger, like a teenager, but I'm thinking adults who went to see this rated R movie. They were sort of their impression of Hollywood was very lifestyles of the rich and famous, right? Very Robin Leach. So the life that Rachel Marin, that's the character's name.
Rachel Marin. That's like Ben Tramer in Halloween.
She lived in this beautiful palatial estate and had a limo driver. And nowadays, that's not how it goes, right? Nowadays, these people live in like...
Now these people are doing cameos.
Well, no. I mean, someone like Cardi B does have a beautiful... But, you know, they live in like... They don't live in Beverly... You know, they live in Calabasas.
Sure.
And then their homes are a lot more modern. You know, a big plot point of The Bodyguard is that her security is not... is very out of date and not working.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So a big part of that story is him getting it together. Whereas nowadays that wouldn't be a thing, right? Everyone has cameras everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, I think it could be done. I just don't know that I would be as interested as I was in 1990 whatever when a Whitney Houston movie with her singing a number of songs came out. I mean, that was just like a moment.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, in that film is the soundtrack.
Right. So it was just a moment.
I don't know.
And even the what's that show, Entertainment Tonight, like that very famous, you know, that like the scene when they're in Miami and she's at the party, and then even John Tesh, like
John Tesh.
But like all of that was very much 90s, like it just felt so iconic. And now to do things like that, it just seems like nothing really right now is everything feels so trendy. And you know, what are they going to show in there? Her TikTok videos, and
oh my god,
it just seems like, I don't know. I would be interested if it's someone I like, but if it's going to be like a old member of Fifth Harmony or some shit, I'm just mad about Cinderella because that was a waste of a movie,
which I didn't watch. It sounds like I won't be.
But moving on, so the obituary section. Who done died?
Norm MacDonald.
Norm MacDonald, who I can picture. I know what he looks like.
He has a very distinct voice. Had a very distinct voice.
So I do know who this person is. He died recently from complications from leukemia, I think.
Wait, he was how old? 60?
He was not old.
He was 61?
Sure.
Anyhow.
I'll confirm that.
I mean, you don't remember him from SNL?
Yes, but I don't know a character of his from SNL.
I remember
He was 61.
Looking at his IMDb, I forgot he had his own show for a bit. I think he got fired from SNL in '98 or let go or however they phrase it. Canned. He had his own show called Norm that I remember being heavily marketed when I lived at home with my parents because I was in high school then. Because I was just looking at the poster for that and showing you Laurie Metcalf's shoes.
Yeah, her clunky.
Oh, it's an ugly poster.
Swedish maid.
And even his style and like, oh, what we wanted straight men to look like.
Was that before or after Roseanne?
After. This is like 1999, 2000.
Because looking at the poster, it felt very Roseanne, like working class white people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
But, he gone.
Yes.
So I hope people appreciated him while he was here. Mm-hmm. All right. So today we did another thing where one of us surprised each other with a movie. And it was Nick's turn. Mm-hmm. So he surprised me with a film called Babyface, which was released in 1933.
Yeah, it's almost 90.
Directed by
Alfred E. Green.
This movie's younger than Clint Eastwood. What else has this director done?
Oh, he had hundreds of credits, but mostly in like the 30s and 40s, where he'd do several films a year.
Oh,
but probably the Jolson story might be his most notable.
That's a horrible name for a title for a movie. So I'm familiar with this movie. I had never seen it, and I didn't know when it came on. I didn't realize what it was. But after I watched it, I realized that you reference this movie all the time.
Yes,
because there are several shots in the film. I'll describe the story, but there are several shots where we see this woman literally climbing the corporate ladder by like seducing men. Mm-hmm. So we see like the camera go up this high rise to different departments in this bank, which is the high rise. Okay, so the film stars Barbara Stanwyck.
Who, so I had a movie night for this years ago that you didn't show up to, where this was a double feature with Double Indemnity.
Oh, God.
Which, of course, you've seen since then as well.
I don't recall.
With Fred McMurray, where she takes out the insurance on her husband and then they help.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yeah, she's excellent in that.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So Barbara Stanwyck plays a character named Lily.
Lily Powers.
And she grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And her dad owns he has like a bar, but he also like makes the beer.
He has a speakeasy.
And that's important to know because like the area where they like distill or whatever so he's with his daughter Lily, who's now an adult, like she's probably 20.
Yeah.
And the mom is gone. She left the dad because he's a terrible person. Part of why he's a terrible person is since Lily was the age of 14, he's been prostituting his daughter out to customers at this damn speakeasy. Mm-hmm. So she's tired of it, and she finally confronts him like, I'm leaving. Because she's inspired by a character named Crag, who's this older man who has taken a liking to her and is not a creep with her. And he inspires her, like he gives her books from Nietzsche and shit. Yeah. So he's trying to tell her, like, girl, you need to use what you have, which I think she misinterprets as my feminine wiles.
Yes.
To get what she wants. But what he was saying is, like, you're a smart, lovely person. You can have the world if you apply yourself. But anyway, she interprets it differently, and she decides she wants to move to New York. So when she tells her dad, he's mad. Like, you're ungrateful. He calls her a tramp. And she's like, you made me a tramp.
But before that happened...
You've been holding me out since I was a teenager.
He locks her up with a politician that's very notable. And she punches the politician who leaves. And the politician says, you are not going to have police protection anymore for your establishment. So that's why
That's why the dad's upset. So Lily's like, well, I'm out. And the dad is like railing into her when another really fun character is Lily's... This black woman who works with Lily, who's kind of like her friend, named Chico, like interrupts them and says, hey, whatever Lily's dad's name is, there's something wrong with like the still. Mm-hmm. So he stops yelling and runs downstairs to the still, and that motherfucker blows up on his ass and kills him. Mm-hmm. So then we cut to Lily and Chico are now in New York. Yeah. And Lily is like... She's very adamant about getting what she wants by using her feminine wiles
She goes the first high rise.
Her first stop is this high rise.
This bank high rise.
And she sees a cop in front of it and she's like, hey, I want to get in there. Like, I want a job in there. What do I need to do? And she's giving him eyes, like googly eyes.
She goes, doesn't she say, like, can't you fix it for me?
And the cop says, like, I mean, he's enamored by, every man who meets Lily is enamored by her. So he's like, yeah, go down to the personnel department on 47th, whatever. She goes, she flirts with that person, gets a job.
Who's this, like, chubby, despicable Southern person?
She works her way to a point when her boss, because we've seen her seduce, like, 3 men to get to, like, a job that she has, like, processing, like, mortgage loans or something. And her boss is flirting with her, and she is in a dark room with him, like, fooling around, when that man's boss, Mr. Stevens, walks in and he's like, oh no, this is unacceptable. Boss man, you're fired. Go get your damn check. And Lily, we can't have this here. You need to go. But Lily sweet talks him.
Well, she's like, what choice do I have? I have to make
He put himself on me. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just a woman. So Mr. Stevens is like, okay. And he lets her work in his office as his receptionist. And she seduces him.
With another secretary there.
Yeah. And we find out Mr. Stevens is engaged to the bank president's daughter. Mm-hmm. So when the bank president's daughter finds out her fiance is messing around with his secretary, she's all upset, tries to tell her dad, Mr. Carter, the bank president, like, you need to get rid of this girl. But then Lily sweet talks Mr. Carter, the bank president, and she convinces him. Like, he gets her, like, a fancy penthouse and supports her. All the while, her little black friend Chico is with her.
Yeah.
Chico's her ride or die.
And Mr. Carter, doesn't he say, like, what does he say? I wish
He's like, I wish you would get rid of that fantastic colored girl. Woman. But it's because the way Lily and Chico work is, like, Chico's kind of cock blocking.
Yeah.
So that they can live this lavish lifestyle without her having to, like, do too much.
Yeah.
So... but things culminate with Mr. Stevens, the guy who's engaged to the bank president's daughter. He's really in love with Lily. So he comes over to her place one night when he finds out she's moved to confront her when he finds out there's a man in her place. And the man is Mr. Carter, his boss. But he's prepared to kill this. He's going to kill himself if Lily wouldn't take him back. But when he sees the man who's his boss, he kills his boss and himself.
Yep,
So it's a murder-suicide, and it's big news. It's brought a lot of shame and scandal to the bank. So the board of directors are like, what are we going to do? And then they have a new president who's the grandson of the founder of the bank.
So it's a very late coming George Brent.
Yes. So Lily's smart, so she's like, well, one of the tabloid newspapers says they'll give me 10 G's. Which is a lot of money. That's like $200,000 back then. If I tell them my story. Well, what's your story? I kept a diary.
You kept a diary. She's like, yeah, just of my
time working here. So they're like, well, how about this? We'll pay you for the diary. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, but I want $15,000, not $10,000. And they're like, fine. But then the new president, Mr. Trenholm, he's like, oh, since you're such an honest lady and you say all you really ever wanted was to make an honest living, we're not going to buy this diary off you because that's just in poor taste. Mm-hmm. We're going to send you to the bank in Paris where no one knows your name. You can change your name and I'll give you a job and you can live happily ever after. Mm-hmm. And you can tell she's like, damn. But she takes it. So then we fast forward however long it takes to get to Paris. I think it's a year, actually, because he says the department's gone up in a year.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Trent, the new president, comes to Paris to visit the bank, and he sees Lily. Like, I didn't expect you to be here. And her boss is like, yeah, she's great. Her department's gone up 40% this year. And then she seduces him inadvertently.
Yeah, it's less...
she tries, but it's less obvious.
Well, there are men hitting on her at all sides here in the Parisian bank as well, but she's just... It seems like she's a little over it.
She convinces him to marry her. Mm-hmm. He does, and it's like the scandal. And she gets she gets him to buy her a bunch of shit. So she has a nest egg of $500,000, which is like, back then, like what, $10 million, something crazy.
But he gets yanked back to New York because he's
indicted for like ruining the bank, and he says, "I need this money back that I gave you." He says, "I need to lawyer up. I need $1 million tonight." I don't understand how that.
I don't either.
I don't understand how this man needs the equivalent of like $20 million.
Can we also like mention that we're in the Depression era America?
Yeah, I don't understand why he thinks he needs the equivalent of $20 million overnight to get a lawyer. But
she goes,
I can't do that. So she tells Chico, "Girl, pack up our shit. We're out of here."
She has a good monologue there too about how everything in her is
she's worked for.
Yeah, she's worked for, and everything inside her is brittle and dry or something.
Okay. So her and Chico get on the train, and Chico's like, just happy to be along for the ride, and she's singing, and Lily is like, "Shut up!" And then she takes her money and runs off the train back to Mr. Trenholm. And she basically confesses her love to him. And then we flash forward like a year or so, and we see that the bank is like back on its feet thanks to the work he did, and Mr. Trenholm and Lily. But they're no longer affiliated with the bank. They've moved back to Pennsylvania, and he's just like
he's a laborer.
He's a blue collar worker,
which I don't believe. That felt very much like we got to tack something on. Yeah,
but we do hear the board of directors saying like that they've cut them a check for their contribution, which I'm sure was significant and will change their lives. But as we leave them, they're kind of just broke, living in Pennsylvania, but happy.
We don't see them. They just show the smokestacks,
right?
Of Pennsylvania.
The end. This was interesting. It's a very heavy-handed.
Oh, for sure. It's very over the top, melodramatic.
But I think the conversation we had afterwards was interesting. It definitely invokes a lot of thoughts regarding sex and misogyny and gender equality. That was good, but Barbara. It's just funny because I think Barbara Stanwyck. I've only seen her in like one other movie, maybe.
No, you've seen a couple, I'm sure.
Maybe. She's not very distinct to me. Like, she could be any lady from that era.
I love Barbara Stanwyck.
I'm sure she's great, but I think it's funny that there are women in the movie who are more beautiful than her. So I thought it was funny, like, this lady is taking down all these men.
I think she's very young and beautiful looking for her in this. And
no, and it's not that she's not pretty enough to grab men, because I see a lot of ugly bitches, like, out here getting men to do all kinds of shit, but... no, it's not that. It's just funny. Like, I mean, we can go on and on about this movie. I do have a few notes before we do. So John Wayne is in this movie.
John Wayne,
and if you paid me $20,000, I could not pick John Wayne out of a lineup. But so I didn't know what he looked like when you said, "Do you know who that is?" But looking at John Wayne in this movie, he looks just like Bullet Head from the Steve Harvey Show. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
I'll have to find a picture for you.
I don't.
But yeah, look up Bullet Head from the Steve Harvey Show, and then look up John Wayne from Babyface. I think they look like the exact same person.
John Wayne was a homophobe, racist, nationalist, so he's not a favorite of mine, even though, Marlene Dietrich did have an affair with him, apparently. Oh, yeah, I could see that. Okay.
I just showed Nick on my laptop. But John, his role is like super, super small.
Yeah, he's a very small step in the ladder.
But what to talk about first? I guess, so the conversation we had was about, I mean, is there something significant about the film? It's pre-code.
It's pre-code. So this film, the code was, what year was that established? Like 3 years before this. So like 1930. And the code had already outlined like what was prohibited to be shown in film, etc., but it wasn't enforced. And this was one of the films that was so scandalous that it really pushed the hand of the censors and was yanked from theaters and really started decades long, until the late 60s when the MPAA was created, this long series of censorship in cinema. So I think that this is a very interesting film because while it is very heavy-handed, it is trying to kind of bluntly talk about the truth of how we lead our lives and what goes on between people, only to kind of send us back into this superficiality of, what men and women do.
Okay, upon completing the film, my immediate thought was men are so stupid.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. Like, the gender dynamics and gender roles that really men have perpetuated, and I think a lot of that revolves around religion and people's like religious and moral values, is just like so like counterproductive, because there are people like in this film, like early 1930s, there weren't a lot of options for men to find women to interact with sexually, right? Unless they
were prostitutes.
Unless they were prostitutes. But it's like, but then it was known that men had mistresses. Like that was a common thing. It just seems like such a weird dynamic. And then we went on and on talking about like sex, but I think it's like superficially men seem so stupid. Like, so this woman just gives you googly eyes and then you believe that she's into you and then you give her all this shit. It's like, no, she's playing you. But then it's like, so then you would think, can't you see? No, because now in 2021, you see all these like girls on social media tricking these men, and these, and the other thing too is oftentimes it's like not the most appealing men who I guess have resigned themselves to thinking like, well, if I want a woman I find attractive to be with me, I have to do something for her. And I'm going to be all over the place with this, but that made me think like, it's such a predatory approach in my mind to see a person and think, I want to have sex with you.
What do I need to do to get it?
What do I need to do to get it? I don't care whether you want it with me. I don't care if my approach is demeaning. Like all I'm focused on is I want you to have sex with me, and I want to have sex with you. And I think that's something that we see a lot with, most stories we see are of straight men. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a weird thing. Like
it is, well, because
but what I was going to say is like all these girls on social media who are out here tricking, and like all these men buying them cars, and it's like, just as an example, like these girls dating these ugly ass rappers. These men look like gremlins.
Are you talking about Lil Wayne?
All of them. They're all ugly, and it's like there are very few attractive male rappers, and those who could pull a beautiful woman if he just worked at like the FedEx store.
Well, and then they give them herpes if they're.
And then, well, I mean, you're talking about R. Kelly,
Usher,
and Usher. No, but it's just like, so clearly these women are with these men because they have money and they can do things for them. So it's like it still happens today. And I always think about Margaret Cho saying that being married is like being a prostitute who works for really low wages. And then she has one bit where she's like, do I have to eat your ass to get you to take out the trash? Like, so it's like, yeah, I guess everyone in some way is sort of exchanging something for something. But
this is kind of just an elaborate ruse where both people are both laying a trap.
But I think when it's like when you're married, it's almost like we're engaging in sort of a mutually beneficial contract, like
symbiotic.
Yeah, symbiotic. Like we know that I'm doing this for you to get this, and there's an understanding. We both have an agenda,
sure, right?
So I think you'd be stupid to just walk into something thinking like this person just has all these like very. Like these heartfelt intentions for me that aren't based on anything but me just being the love of their life. And that's a little naive, right? Because people also have a plan for the life they want.
Sure.
And you have to kind of fit into that. So I'm not going to be in a relationship with someone who's not going to be able to accompany me where I want to go.
Of course, yeah.
So I can't date a broke-ass man because, like, I'm not going to support someone else. Like, I'm not. So I'm not saying that it's, like, so crazy. And certainly in my younger days, I definitely probably related a lot to Lily because I didn't know. I wasn't raised thinking that like I would be able to take care of myself. My mom did a fantastic job and loved me a lot, but I don't think it was part of the my sort of thought process as a kid was not that like one day I'll be able to take care of myself.
Okay.
Right? I felt loved and I was smart and encouraged and supported, but I don't think I really understood like, okay, at a point I'm going to have to do for myself, and how will I do that? So then when I started college and I started getting attention from men and they start doing things for me, I was like, oh, so this is how I'll do it. Like men will help me pay for things, they'll take care of me. So I understand how that can happen. I just think like on the other side of that picture, the people who we can get off this topic, I guess, because I'm going to go on and on, but
you're fine.
But the thing we were talking about is another big theme I thought about when I thought men are so stupid is people being sort of like sexually repressed, right?
The danger of sexual repression.
The danger of sexual repression really rears its head when we see stories like this. Like these men...
Well, it's like, again, Depression era America, granted they're in Manhattan, where this action is taking place, but making very reckless decisions over, you know, a woman that they might have some access to.
Right.
But not just any kind of woman. It's not a it's like it has to be a woman that's presented in a way that you meet her in a way that is appropriate and wholesome, but you can also kind of pervert the situation, which is bizarre if you think about it. And then, you know, the aim is to marry her and then take her out of the workforce where she's no longer...
She's handicapped.
Yeah, but she's no longer vulnerable then, where other men have access to her.
Right.
So it's just that. But it looks funny and silly, but yes, the repression aspect is, yeah, they go crazy.
I think, you know, I had said that I think there are two types of people when it comes to sex. Those who place a lot of value on sex and those who don't. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm someone who doesn't. Like, I don't attach sex to like my own personal value. Meaning that whether or not someone wants to have sex with me doesn't really make me feel...
Well, that's interesting because I don't think straight men typically... I think the angle we were talking about this in is that straight men don't feel like it's part of their self-worth, but whereas women and gay men do.
Well, so what I was going to say is yes. So straight men don't necessarily attach that same value, but the value they attach to it is something that they need because they can't get it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that all straight men...
No.
Nobody feels that way.
No. But I think... So there's that category. Whether you attach value like your own self-worth. So like for gay men, it's like, am I not attractive enough that people don't have sex with me? Or if you're like maybe a stereotypical straight guy who like, I can't get sex as easily as I want, so I place a lot of value in it. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm hungry for it because I can't get it. Or then you have people on the other end who are like, they just don't place value in sex. Like they don't necessarily want it. They're like, you know, maybe like have a low sex drive, or then someone like me who doesn't place a lot of value in it because it's very easy to get, so it doesn't feel special. Like someone wanting to be sexual with me doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel kind of the opposite. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you so eager to do this thing with me? So I think that's what I thought watching this, that a lot of people, their lives are greatly affected by this sort of like uncontrollable drive to do this thing. Like it's almost like a compulsion. And I think this film sort of shows this woman manipulating men who have this compulsion to be with her. And I think her casting is fine. She doesn't have to be the most beautiful woman because it's not about her beauty. It's just having access to this vagina.
But again, a vagina that is of a certain class even. I mean, she's presented as somebody that's, you know, clawing her way out of the working class. But again, it's the presentation of, you know, her vagina, if you will, and that because she's not a prostitute. She's viewed as something that's worth more than that. Right.
So just very interesting. A couple of notes I had on the movie, though. I thought the creepiest part of the movie is when Mr. Stevens confronts her at her new penthouse, and he shoots the president, Mr. Carter. Lily's watching it.
She watched it and doesn't move. It's probably one of the best shots.
She has zero reaction.
Yeah.
So I thought that was creepy, but even before that, when she walks by her bed, it would require someone like pause it, but she has these creepy dolls on her bed. Yeah. Like, why the fuck does she have these creepy ass Annabelle dolls on her bed?
But again, it's weird the presentation of she has to keep up a certain facade for these men in the house that she is innocent. Like even Mr. Carter when...
Oh, that's a good point. She probably has the dolls because because he says like, oh, is this your first...
is this your first...
heartbreak or something? And she's like, yeah. Like, bitch, you've been hoeing since you were 14. We're not going to act like...
But again, even how she kind of has to infantilize him because
Yes.
she calls him Fuzzy
She calls
Wuzzy
him baby.
and baby.
Yeah.
But then she uses that to interesting effect in the board because after the scandal, the murder suicide, they call her forward and she's like talking about her diary and she's like, and then baby came into my life. And they're all kind of like, ooh, yeah, we got to shut her up.
Yes. Also, I thought it was funny that when she goes to Paris and we see the Paris bank, everyone speaks English.
They have some...
They do have some people speaking French, but I just thought it was funny that she clearly, I mean, she couldn't have known anything about Paris before she moved there.
No.
And now she's like a travel expert in France. Like, okay, girl.
Yeah, that's entertaining, of course.
But yeah, I thought it...
what did you think of George Brent, who shows up very...
Who's that?
Mr. Trenholm.
Oh.
The one she falls for.
He was okay. He looked a little greasy to me, but whatever.
That's, he had, I believe he had an affair with Bette Davis, because she, in her early films, she really liked working with him.
Oh.
Like in Dark Victory.
It was okay.
But for the male lead showing up very late. The movie's only like an hour and 11 minutes.
Oh, yeah, he does show up very late. No, I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it if a person hasn't seen it.
Can we talk for a minute about Teresa Harris?
Oh, who's that?
Chico.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think stopped acting, I think she died in 1985,
Okay.
but she stopped acting in the late 50s, and she had over 100 credits to her
Oh.
name. But many of that, for black character actress,
She was a maid or a housekeeper.
maid or housekeeper, or virtually uncredited in a lot of those films. But the other she has two very other notable films in her resume, including Jezebel, which Bette Davis won her second Oscar for.
Okay.
She plays Betty's maid, of course, and then Jacques Tourneur's excellent "I Walked with a Zombie," which is kind of a zombie rehash of Jane Eyre, which in turn influenced Apichatpong Weerasthackel's recent Memoria from this year. Anyhow, that being said, to me, who watches a ton of old films, like whenever I see her pop up, I know immediately who she is. And I think that I like Babyface so much, not because of just Barbara Stanwyck, but this 1930s film where this white woman is attached to this black woman, and also they're kind of helping each other out in the ways that maybe are predestined to where they are in the social order, but they have each other's back. It's kind of like some early Mae West films in that sense too, where I really like that depiction because it's so rare that you see that. Because she's very kind to her. Like even like for one Christmas dinner, you can see she's, Chico's got nice clothes and is able to kind of come and go as she pleases. As Lily gets more access to money, she hires butlers and other help. So Chico's not really there as a necessity. It's almost like she's her friend.
Yeah.
So I really like that presentation. But I was reading about Teresa Harris, and in black-owned theaters, they would put her name on the marquee above her white co-stars, or they wouldn't even,
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's also beautiful.
Oh yeah.
She died. She was living in Inglewood.
Shit. Okay.
Which is near us. But she, I'm reading that she lived a very nice life because she retired in the 50s. But she married a doctor in 1933, and this is saying that she lived a very comfortable life off of careful investments from her own career. But she was married to a doctor, so
she would have had to.
So that's nice to know that she lived a very comfortable life before she passed.
Well, because I can't. Yeah, who knows what kind of money they gave her to be in these films? But it's funny that because there were a lot of black people that were in films, but the erasure is they aren't even credited in a lot of these films. But I always think of the Leech Woman too, the actress in that who plays the young version of the old lady, Kim Hamilton. She showed up in a ton of stuff too. Like watching Odds Against Tomorrow with Harry Belafonte. It's just like, there are all of these, I don't know, just careers erased, I feel. But
anything else?
No. Did you enjoy your secret film?
Sure.
It was released as part of Volume 1 of a TCM Archives collection. They have several volumes now called Forbidden Hollywood that kind of tries to recuperate pre-code films. So I definitely recommend, if you like collecting, Forbidden Hollywood Volume 1, and which has 3 films on it: Babyface, Waterloo Bridge, the original directed by James Whale, the homosexual, who directed Frankenstein. But the other film that I hope that I can get you to watch someday in this collection is called Red-Headed Woman. It's only about an hour long, but it's starring Jean Harlow. A lot of fun. Also very racy.
Oh. This movie also made me want to give a shout out to the theater in Minnesota called the Heights Theater in Columbia Heights.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a cute little theater, and we watched several. I recall watching The Big Clock there.
The Big Clock, and I think I took you to a couple of Veronica Lake films.
Yeah, this movie, I mean, I would, it makes me want to watch it in like an old theater. But yeah, no, it was good. That's all I have.
Okay.
Do you want to say goodbye?
Oh, I thought I had pulled up, hold on, a Barbara quote to be appropriate. Not that she had, she had lots of wise things, but it was something about Rod Taylor. Because there's rumors that she had an affair with Edith Head, the costume designer. I don't know really if that's true, but there were lots of lesbian rumors that plagued Barbara. But she was married to Rod Taylor, who's kind of a matinee idol in the late 30s and 40s. So, I had it pulled up, but I don't see it now. But something like, he's got a lot to learn, and I got a lot to teach.
Oh. I just saw a quote that says, "You think I'm sarcastic? You should hear what I don't say."
Oh, yeah. See, I think she was smart and funny, and there's
I don't know that that's from her. That spoke to me right now.
She's a very humble person. I have her. There's a very extensive biography about her that was published a couple years ago. Yeah, she's just a very interesting person, especially for being a Hollywood leading lady.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.